What's going on, everybody? Ron Murray back with you. I have another interview, someone I definitely want to get on and talk to, James Sackville. He is the founder of the Air app. You've seen it online. The content has been wild. It's been amazing as far as trying to get these student athletes connected to these college teams. You talk about the transfer portal. Well, he founded the Air app, athletes in recruitment app, to try to connect the two. James, thank you so much for coming on today.
Appreciate you having me.
No problem. So, James, you grew up in the land down under, Australia. You grew up playing Australian rules football. So what's the difference between that and American rules football?
Oh, wow. Well, like a quarterback throws the ball in America, we kick the ball. That's our form of passing, but everyone does it. So the skill set was pretty seamless to come over and kick a ball here in America.
How was it growing up in Australia? Just, we hear how it is down there, kangaroos and everything, but there is a level of relativity to it. So how was it?
Yeah, the whole population of Australia is about the population of Texas. So it's about 25 million people. I grew up in a metropolitan city, bigger than Dallas, about 5 million people. And Australian football was the closest thing we had to really religion. Like the level of fandom for the league and the sport is rivaled with that of American football here in the States. And I grew up playing that somewhat competitively. You get drafted as an 18-year-old kid, much like 18-year-old kids here go to college. The opportunity is only really for professional in Australia. And then I didn't get drafted, which was pretty soul crushing. And 9 months later, I was on a one-way flight to Dallas and playing for SMU. So it was pretty much a whirlwind to have my dreams crushed in Australia, not going to play the professional level at my sport, and then getting flown 8,000 miles across the world to play in front of 60,000 people for your first game is a bit of a whirlwind, to say the least.
Number 47 in your program for the SMU Mustangs. How was the recruiting process going from Australia to where someone from SMU was able to see you and then give you an opportunity to come out to Dallas to play for the Mustangs? How was your recruiting journey?
Yeah, there's a program back home called Pro Kick Australia, which has pretty much gotten every Australian that you see within collegiate athletics or collegiate football, opportunities. And I'd heard nothing but good things. There was a few guys that I grew up around or had known of, really, that had gone through and been able to come over to the States and get a full ride. And I was like, that's pretty cool, pretty good going. And at the time, my best friend was the captain of the Australian basketball team. And I remember sitting in class with him growing up, and he's getting phone calls from Coach K, and he's getting phone calls from the head coach at Ohio State and Florida. I'm just like, what are we talking about here? We're sitting literally in Melbourne, Australia, 8,000 miles away. So that's kind of where the first alarm bell went off for me. It was like, maybe this is a possibility for me if Australian football doesn't work out. And then I joined the program back home in Australia, and they essentially break down your technique for the better part of 9 to 12 months. And then they have the relationship capital with college coaches here. And I was, it wasn't a situation where some kids here in the States get, 30, 40 offers and they make it a whole big spectacle. It's you get one offer, you either like it, you don't. If you don't like it, hopefully the coach back home likes you enough to send you somewhere else. Otherwise, you're kind of shit out of luck. So for me, it was like you kind of had to be happy with SMU, and I got very lucky, but it very well could have ended badly if I didn't go to the right school.
Definitely a cut and dry process. It wasn't a bunch of hats on the table or anything like that. Here's the opportunity, and you took the opportunity, went to the hilltop over in Dallas with SMU. So you had a successful career at SMU. You had a chance to go in the transfer portal to play in the SEC, but you decided to start the Air app. What was the inspiration for the Air app?
Yeah, it was an expensive process for me to come over to the States. Very transparently, it cost me $8,000 back in 2015, which is like a real chunk of change for the average family. And I thought it was just an international issue, given the fact that of my history. And then I come over to the States. I'm sitting in a college locker room in Dallas, Texas, arguably the most talent-rich area in the country for football. And I'm listening to every one of my teammates, bar none. Like not one gave me, I actually should be here. It was, no, I should have gone to Texas. I should have gone to Baylor. My high school coach screwed me. I had to pay $20,000 to get here. I'm just like, what do you mean? Like there's 15 schools within like driving distance. You just knock on the door and be like, hey, here I am. And I'm the one who had to fly 8,000 miles. And I was just like, this is a broken system. There's way too many barriers to entry, too many gatekeepers in the space. And I just hated that. I was like, if you're good enough, you're good enough. Like there should be an exposure platform for you to get that opportunity. I can't promise you that you're going to get a scholarship, but like I can at least be like, you're going to get in front of them and then let decision makers make decisions. So I saw that with football, then realized it was a athletic department wide issue within SMU over all sports, both male and female. And then, yeah, to your point, I put my name in the transfer portal at the end of 2019 after my 4 years, had an extra year of eligibility and wanted to explore it. That was in 2020. And as you know, you and your listeners probably know, the world ended. So at that point in time, I had to make a decision. Yeah, it was go play at, two very prestigious SEC programs and make a decision on one of them or pursue the business. And I was very honest with myself and said, I don't have any desire to play in the NFL. There are 32 jobs at my position. And if you're the 33rd best accountant in the world, you're probably doing okay for yourself. And if you're the 33rd best punter, I'm sitting on your couch waiting for a phone call. And I just didn't think that was the career for me, especially being an international kid and visas and things of that nature. It didn't really do it for me. And to be very candid, like I didn't love football, which is, may be a polarizing thing to say, but I didn't grow up playing the sport. I grew up playing an entirely different sport, and football was the door to open up all the opportunities for the rest of my life. And I was incredibly grateful, but I didn't have this like crazy emotional attachment to like continuing to play. I felt as though I'd got everything out of it that I needed to. And there were going to be no crowds in 2020 anyway, because of COVID. So that was the decision I made. And I'm really, really thankful I made that decision back in 2020.
I think that's a great mindset to have, because so many people are so athletic driven, but there are other opportunities. Like you said, there are only 32 starting spots. So being the 33rd, you're going to be out of the job. So I definitely salute you taking that opportunity and really just, do what you need to do going forward. So with that, what would you say the Air app, stands out from the other recruiting services? Because you made a very good point. There are a lot of gatekeepers in this thing. Some people that don't even work for the school, but They're able to navigate kids in a certain way. Where does the Air app stand out with all that going on?
Yeah, we've democratized access. We've built LinkedIn for sports. So what I mean by that is if you're an athlete and you want to have the opportunity to play in college, like you now can control your own narrative and don't have to go through someone that, makes it all big and scary and claims that they have all of this relationship capital with coaches. At the end of the day, two things are true. Athletes need the most exposure possible to play at whatever the level is that they want to. And coaches need to find the best players wherever they may find it. There are only two types of coaches in the world: coaches that have been fired and coaches that are going to be fired. There's no such thing as job security. If you don't have the players, you're probably not going to win games. And if you don't win games, you're not going to be having your job for very much longer. So I've never met a single coach above the age of 30 in collegiate athletics that hasn't had at least 2 or 3 jobs. Like no one starts assuming they're a 22-year-old starting as a coach, and by the age of 30, they're still in the same job. There's no way. Like it's not happening. It's not the industry we live in. So I say all of that to say they need to find talent however they can. And if that means that they find a diamond in the rough because an athlete puts themselves out there and now has the tools to do so, fantastic. If you want to go through the gatekeeper, I can't stop you. But we've essentially built a platform where you don't have to be reliant anymore on that service. And you made the statement, what makes you different than the service? We're not a service. I think it's a really important distinction to make. We are not sitting here saying we're either going to sell to the university or we're going to charge kids thousands of dollars. That's not what we're doing. We simply built the platform just like LinkedIn. You, me, or anyone else, any business professional could go on LinkedIn and maybe find a job and promote ourselves and network appropriately. We've built the exact same tool just for athletics.
About right around now with the Air app, how many kids would you say have signed up? Even because I've seen there's even kids internationally that have signed up. How many kids have actually signed up, and along with how many coaches have signed up, to try to go into the Air app and sign up some of these kids?
Yeah, we've had almost 250,000 kids sign up over the course of a year. And we've had, 5 or so thousand coaches sign up in the course of a year as well. And I should preface by saying that's just in football, men's and women's basketball, and men's and women's volleyball. So over the course of the next year, 12 months or so, we'll be launching into all sports that are offered within collegiate athletics. So, plenty of room to grow there. We started in football, as I'm sure much of the social media that you've seen about us. And, I'd like to think did a pretty good job at going viral and building
Great job.
Building brand equity. And, now most people, if you hear the phrase, the Air app, you probably have like, oh, I've heard that before, which is pretty hard to accomplish for a company that's 1 year into being live in the market. But plenty of upside opportunity there.
You hear a lot of horror stories when it comes to the transfer portal. Kids that go in as student athletes and they stay in there and they're never an athlete again. Yep. So what are some tips that you would say to make these kids more recruitable when they are getting ready to sign up for the Air app or even just jump into the transfer portal?
Yeah, I think you need to be like really educated about what else is out there. It's not always greener on the other side. And I think that like the whole world of NIL has kind of made everything gray and more about money, which the unfortunate reality is for the overwhelming majority of these kids, you're not that marketable, number one, and you're probably not going to play in the NFL, number two. So like, what are you actually doing with the rest of your life? And that's like a pretty hard thing to say for a lot of these kids and for a lot of these kids to admit to themselves. But like, if you're a 19, 20-year-old kid and you went to a group of 5 school, didn't play, and then you're like, I'm going to put my name in the portal. Don't expect that like there's going to be 100 schools waiting for you, especially if you haven't played. Because like, what makes you different than anyone else? Like, do you have film? Are you a stand-up kid? Do you have a plan with the rest of your life type of deal? Like, it's a very real conversation that every kid has to have. And I feel as though many don't have that conversation with themselves. They just say, I got the bad end of the stick by this coach, and now I'm going to try it different. And that's fine. There are bad apples. I've met plenty of bad coaches, I promise. Plenty. But it's not always greener on the other side. So you just have to like have a really clear idea of what you want to do. Or if you put your name in the portal, where are you thinking you're going to go? Because there aren't that many options out there, even though there are a bunch of schools.
So you did bring up the part that you are getting ready to expand.
Yeah.
Men and women's basketball. So what are some other things that we can expect for the Air app? Big salute to you. An investment. I read about that. Keep going, keep doing great things. What are some other things we can expect from the Air app in the future?
We are expanding over the course of the next 12 months into all sports that are offered within collegiate athletics. And I think if we're successful in that endeavor and we're able to provide real value, then I think there's definitely a world in which, we kind of look at what the greater ecosystem of sports looks like, perhaps before you even get to college. I think that there's plenty of opportunity in youth sports to play, perhaps, at a travel team or a youth team or a representative AAU basketball, whatever it may be. That is just as, I would argue, just as competitive as college recruiting. And I think that there's a real market there. So we have to see if we're capable of scaling first into collegiate, and then I think we can look further at what the rest of the ecosystem looks like.
Fantastic. James Sackville, the founder of the Air app, Athletes and Recruitment. Thank you so much for your time. Let everybody know where they can find you at and where they can sign up as well, James.
Yeah. So the Air app on all socials. And if you type in the Air app on the Google Play or the App Store or www.theairapp.com, you'll be able to find us and join the community.
All right. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you, brother.